1.
Yo, and welcome to episode 29 of Core Office Hours. We welcome you from wherever you are in the world to right here in this moment, in this place and time, because we're going to hang, chill. We're going to talk about design and brand. I'm excited to be here with you. And if you guys really enjoyed today's conversation, please like, subscribe, chat, ask questions, see something that you saw in today's presentation and want to hear more. Drop it in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. All right, so here at We Are the System, we always believe that connection is the currency. And it's all about the vibes and the values here. Why are we here? Well, our mission is to empower the creative leaders of the future to transform global business through design the future together. So as you can see, the system community is global. We are not a regional location. We are a global experience and a global community. And as you can see, we bring a vast array of cultures and perspectives and identities and experience and expertise. And so today we're going to dive into that, and we're going to do that around this case study. So here's our agenda for today's conversation. We're going to drop in for 15 minutes. We're going to talk about the case study, Intuit. We're going to do a core Q&A. Then we're going to have the upload. What is the one thing that you got from today's conversation that you can carry with you into your work on a daily basis?
We co-create the content. I do the sponsorship part. Core Discovery is our sponsor today, a step-by-step design strategy framework at coresmagic.com. You can align brand goals and users. And now you can do the sharing rules. Keone, back to you.
Alrighty. Back to me in the studio. Thank you, Mike. This Mike, not that one.
No.
So
I like Mike.
I like Mike. Mike is awesome. So here's the rules, guys. We believe that everybody has something of valuable input to provide. The key is being able to provide it in a way that is open to deeper conversation. And so the way that we do that is we do not give advice to each other. We talk about it in example format. So what does that mean? I would have done it like this, speaking from the I, the personal, or I see it like this, as opposed to saying it in an objective or in a not an objective, in
an explaining way. Hey, you should do it.
Explaining way. Yeah, exactly. Like you should. No, we don't tell anybody what they should do. We just share our experiences and our perspectives, and we allow for the other party to then, take it at their ability or context. So yeah, we only share from a primary or secondary experience. So this is either something that you have done, that you have seen, and then that's it. So we're keeping this really focused on something that you can speak deeply about from your perspective. All righty, that's out of the way. Let's drop in. So the drop in is where we love to just connect and hear a little bit about you and where you are in the world. And today's question is one thing that you are grateful for today. I'll model that. My name is Keone. I'm located in downtown Los Angeles. What do? I am a brand and community architect. I do advisory work. I do strategy work. And the one thing that I'm grateful for today, I think the big thing that I'm grateful for is myself. I tend to get out of my head a lot of times in situations. You're like, oh, that's happening in the world is like this crazy, chaotic space. My gratefulness comes from me, the reminder that I have in myself that I'm good enough. I have the skills, I have the expertise, I have the network. The solution is here. You just have to commit to it from the I and follow through. And so, that was sort of my reminder this morning, and that's something that I'm grateful for. And let's pass that on off. let's invite Shaquille Muhammad Mello, my man, to the stage. Kobe.
What's going on, people? Lovely to be here. Shaquille Muhammad, born and raised in the Seattle area, more specifically Kirkland, Washington, home of Costco. Shout out to all my Costco members. What do I do? Developer turned designer. Been running my own business, Intersect Designs, focusing on branding and strategy for the past year and some change, and getting ready to start an MFA in graphic design at Art Center College of Design. Been a wild journey. I would say today I'm thankful for life's adversities, because that's built that tough skin on me. And super. So I just finished watching the Genius documentary, the trilogy on Kanye that's out on Netflix, and he dropped this line that was just so precise. He said, so he actually corrects Rick Rubin, who's a legendary producer, started the Beastie Boys and all that, if you go back in history at Def Jam. Anyways, Rick Rubin says he's really excited. Kanye corrects him and says, no, I'm energized. When people get excited, they'll run across the street to go see whatever that thing they just got, and they'll get hit by a car. Because they get so overwhelmed with the energy, they lose track of what else is going on. So I'm energized, not excited. So it's a little bit of that grounding in the energy. So that's where I'm at. Let's see. Amit, in a minute, brother.
Hey Shakil. Hi everyone. So I'm Amit Shetty. I'm a UX designer based out of Hyderabad in the southern part of India. Now it's a good monsoon season going on after the heat waves, so it's all chill. Yeah, today we saw the first sunlight in last few days, so I'm grateful for the weather changing for the better. So yeah, it's great, and again grateful for the community and the knowledge that everyone brings and shares. And I will pass on to Roxana.
She on audio. Let's see, Roxana. She's an attendee. She might not be able to share. There we go. Oops. I unmuted you, Roxana.
Hey, you guys. Hopefully, I'm not making any noise. Sorry. I would say I'm really grateful to be back. I haven't seen your faces in a long time, so happy to see you all. Thank you.
Happy to see you. Let's stick to the panelists, the people on the stage. If anybody else wants to do it, please raise your hand. Mila in Chicago.
Hey everybody, I'm Mila. Originally from Chicago, working in New York, residing in Jersey. They have more trees. I'm a production associate for JLL, and I am grateful for my Dragon Boat Race team that's gonna have their competition on July 30th at Flushing Meadows Pond. It's gonna be awesome, so I'm grateful to make connections with the company and challenge myself. They put me in the front last time, so I guess I'm pretty good, but that's it.
Pick someone.
I can't see everybody because I'm on my iPad, so pick someone for me. Sorry.
Alejandro.
Jaja.
Or Jaja, good one. Go for it.
Hey everyone, so great to see you. First of all, Jose, your painting behind you is mesmerizing. It's amazing. Hey, I'm Jaja. I'm from the UK. I do branding, but my niche is to help. I'm trying to help purposeful driven business organizations to strive and to do better. So what I'm grateful is today to see you guys, and also I have a man trying to cook for me downstairs, so I'm grateful for that. Yeah, that's me. Great to meet you guys.
Now Alejandro. That's I think Alejandro, Sean, and Shelly are left. So pick someone at the end, Alejandro.
Hi, okay, so my name is Alejandro. I'm a brand and web designer from Costa Rica. And yeah, I'm very grateful because last couple of weeks I joined forces with a very talented web developer from Mexico, Monterrey. And yeah, this is a very new, a brand new and exciting phase. And so yeah, I'm pretty excited. I think excitement depends on what each person defines by that and how crazy they get. So yeah, I feel excited. And the person would be Chile. Sorry if I'm butchering your name.
Shelly.
Shelly. There you go.
You can call her Chili.
You can call me whatever.
Sorry.
Shelly. So I'm Shelly. I'm from Calgary, Canada, and this is my first time in the group here. I have a brand strategy background, and I've used Core, and I've sort of shifted to be doing a little bit more general strategy using, I don't know if you've heard of design sprints. But so I'm also looking into doing sort of combining those things, doing sort of brand strategy sprints. And so that's a thing I'm moving into. And I'm thankful for it's summer, so Canadians are happy for that. And thankful to meet the group here. Who's left? Sorry, I'm not sure. Whoever's left, raise your hand. Sean? Over to you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Sean. I'm from South Africa, Johannesburg. And this is also my first time joining the group. And I'm super thankful that I got the opportunity to actually say thank you and how energized I am to be here, because Core's really changed my business. It's changed my life, and I'm very thankful for that. And I'm thankful for actually the opportunity, like I said, to be able to connect with a great community, because we've got some power issues in South Africa. I wasn't able to join last week. I'm actually lucky to join tonight because they do scheduled blackouts regarding power. So that's what I'm thankful for, that I get the opportunity to actually be here tonight with you guys. And yeah, I look forward to getting to know you all. That's it. I don't think there's anyone else left. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm a fledgling brand strategist, photographer, and founder of Bloke Branding. Also a director at an NPO, Digital Horizons Training. And yeah, it's a little bit about me. Thank you.
Welcome, brother. Glad to have you here, man. Let's go with Daniel. Oh, are we moving on? Excuse me. I'm sorry. Jose.
Yep.
What's the plan?
Last
One
man
more?
standing.
Last man standing. Daniel, Katie.
Sure. What's happening? I'm Dan Katie from Los Angeles. You can't see me. I'm not on the panel, but cheers. Strategist by way of design, recently gone independent. I spent 20 years in-house, and now I'm building out an independent services consultancy. I am super grateful for moments of reflection. Like the last couple of weeks, I've been real cognizant of trying to really feel those moments where I feel the vibe, like looking at my kids play, watching my dogs, those kind of things. So just gratitude for those kind of things.
Beautiful, man. Thank you so much for that. And yeah, we like to have these little moments to just check in with ourselves and our community. All right, let's dive in, Jose.
Awesome. Awesome. So let's go into the case study. I'm going to do it fairly quickly, so bear with me. So this was a bit ago, I think maybe 2016, 15. And Intuit Paymaster, the question was how to help. Intuit happens to be a $100 billion company, which is insane, but they needed to architect their Paymaster product. The Paymaster product calculates sales commissions with a portal, meaning all the people that are selling things like QuickBooks and all the Intuit products, the Salesforce uses this to internally track a lot of different financial functions. They were doing it in this format. It was being done, this is what it looked like using Microsoft Excel and, the online products. Someone like Shaquille might know better what their cloud products that back then were or are. Anyhow, I think it's Assure or something else. Our job was to translate it into a web interface. And the reason for that is because the team that was developing it was en route to India to work with a development firm, and they needed to have a UI for it in their new style guide, but they hadn't done a translation from where they were at to that. The developers were just taking what they had now and starting to make it a web product with no UI, no UX. So they were like, oh my God, we need to have a session, and they didn't have a lot of time. This session was actually 2 days, one day in person, and the second day was doing deliverables. So agenda, getting it together, the agenda is one of the most important parts of doing core because you have to time box it. Otherwise, you're not going to get through everything, especially when you're doing a lot of stuff. Did the brand attributes, even though they might not have been necessary here, did them quickly. The client was fairly like, okay, this is interesting, but it gave us at least at a minimum a bit of a sense. When done for a software product, I think of them as product attributes, because it's not necessarily, we're not doing a new look, we're not doing a new logo for Intuit, all we're doing is just doing their product. This is the most important exercise, which was understanding and we were talking about this earlier in terms of Sean, the attribute clustering and everything is always like three priorities. It's just a number selected to prioritize. Otherwise, if you have too many priorities, it's just very difficult sometimes to like hit it on something. And 3 is the first number that is a complete geometric shape. So the user profiles, reviewing the current product, we walked it through, we pasted, all the screenshots that we had, we put them on the wall. It's part of the agenda. One thing here was dividing internal and external stakeholders before doing user profiles, because you have external people who are reading the data, and then you have internal, the salespeople that are actually inputting the data. So we divided that, like system admin, analysts, these are internal at Intuit, external, a reseller or a corporate partner. One question I always ask before we do user profiles is like, okay, if this is a software product for a corporation or for a company, you have to determine who the stakeholders are that are addressing or accessing the product. It's fairly common and basic. Nicole Johnson, big props to Nicole Johnson. She was my apprentice for 2 years, and she was in the room working with me on it. She facilitated some of the sessions. We did all the 3 primary core exercises in terms of the third exercise in the prioritization is sometimes it's very feature related. We did the sitemap together. Like we basically he had already printed out like what all of the components were of the existing way that they were doing it, or he had the suggested sitemap. All he had created, the client, was a sitemap for what needed to be done. And what we did was we just visualized it together and rearranged, edited, put stuff out, sort ordered like what was on the top, like what was actually really the structure. It wasn't questioning what he had already done. It was reviewing it and confirming. That was a really big part of the session in the day. And we were doing the other thing we were doing in the room. This was another apprentice, and it was lively. We were documenting everything live. So at the end of the session, the attributes, users, everything was already in a document in slide form that we can quickly take into action. So your question, Sean, about the brief, this was all being done live. The references in this case were, here's the new style guide for Intuit, which had just been done at this point for the web version of the product. but it's an extremely complex product. Coming from the biggest thing I can say about this is, so this was a high fidelity wireframe, bringing it into the new Intuit style guide. The biggest thing I can say about this is the client was in the room and we were sketching, you know, the product like pretty much live as we went through the process. I actually had a picture of the live sketching process, and it doesn't look like it made it in here, but I'll add it in. So I'm done.
Jose, quick question.
Yeah.
Did you have an information architect on this at all?
Me and Nicole. Why do you ask that question? That's interesting.
No, just, you know, you were talking about the complex nature of this. And then my next question was going to be, was Barrett was on, is that Barrett in there?
No, dude. Who taught Barrett? I did.
Nice.
I mean, well, here's how I'll answer your question. When I was at Razorfish, early on, coming up with the title of like information architecture, information design, graphic design, there's a contingency of us art center people that were really like, hey, we're information fucking designers, information architects. What the hell? But the root of that was starting to separate, like information architects who deal with the complexity of products. Now it's called UX design versus UI design. And then the question is, are you a UX designer or are you a UI designer? The part about UX design that for me I'm not a fan of, is that if you're solving a very complex problem over a length of time and that's all you're doing, it's just not interesting and exciting to me. And I'd rather work with someone that's really dedicated to doing that. Can I do it? Yeah, I'm very good at doing it. But my gift and the talent is actually doing it live with the client and super high fidelity in terms of the UX versus, you know, and then Nicole did all the wireframing and all the questions. Like she was like, is this right? And she basically, her and I bounced back and forth until we did it. So it was like a band as an information architect. And I haven't heard information architecture or architect used as a title. Shaquille, recently, do you see it? Now the big trend is product designer.
Not at all. Honestly, like,
Yeah. Go ahead.
Like from my experience in working in big tech, it's like you'll have software architects. So these are people doing, you know, this approach to whole systems, which have their own, you know, multitude of data models and structures within. But ultimately, it tends to just come down to teams. Like if you're a developer, you better also be an information architect.
Yeah, you know, I look at it as a speciality or like a subset of the work that you're actually doing. And you only really need someone that is a supreme specialist in that field, so to speak, if you have like very deeply complex projects that have, you know, multitudes of states and phases and interactivities, like Photoshop, right? I would assume that they would have an information architect that focuses specifically on the levels of depth of feature and relationship and the way that they all function against like an overall experience.
I think I know where your question is coming from, and I'm going to address it this way because it's a very good one. As a designer, you know, it might be a risk or it also might be difficult to get into in one day the understanding of a very complex system for payments to vendors or to salespeople, et cetera. It's a damn complex system, and this is actually, and it's not a product. It's actually, but it's part of core, and it's the issue of translation. The way that I personally do it is surrender to, like, you know, you're channeling, you know, two things. One, you're channeling and making yourself okay, now I am this particular user. How would I look at this and what are my needs? So if you were an actor and you're doing method acting, the motivation and who you are, the story of the character, you have to adapt it and then design as if you were that person. Like you put on the user and then you're like looking at the problem from that point of view. I can then turn to the director who's the client and say, so what challenges do they deal with? You know, this particular user, the admin for internal, he's going to go like, well, yeah, this is one of our biggest, he's right there in the room. So it's a very collaborative process to understand the problems and how to solve it. The one thing you can't do is really be that other person unless that person is in the room, but you can make assumptions based on some of the vectors. And somebody raise their hand and I'll shut up.
Yeah.
But that's a really good question, Keone.
Yeah, you know, and to answer to your point, you know, I think that explains why you need to have a process of validation in your product development. You know, at some point you're making an assumption, but you're always needing to validate that against user data, against user experience. And that's the virtuous cycle, right? And then you get those insights and then you make another small assumption. And eventually, right, you get enough of a understanding where it's less of assumption and maybe the community is large enough to be able to lead some of that feature development. But maybe that's more
that's a
Web3
super
than
good
Web2.
point. And it's a very concrete. All right, let's do rapid fire
Okay.
questions here. Courtney Long and Keone, if you can also help me man the questions or.
You got it. So Courtney, she asked.
That's Scola.
Oh, excuse me. Does anyone have an alternative way to approach building the user profiles? We have you in the past, future, aspirational. And so it gets tricky for me as it doesn't make sense for every situation. So that's an open question to the community. Would anyone here like to share maybe how they do persona development?
I can take it, Keone, and this is something that last week itself we've been working on restructuring our personas. Right now in the market, if you see, the personas are like, who's the person, what is their job profile, what is their bio, personality differentiator, then what are their pain points, goals, and all. Now, what we try to look at is we try to add factors such as firmographics. Now, firmographics means which industry they belong to. Is it a small size? Is it like a tier 1 or tier 2 city? Like it's an urban area, to understand what kind of cultural background these people might have, and how much percentage of our target audience is this persona representing itself, right? Then we added like psychographic metrics. Are they able, like, what is their educational level? So there are like multiple points. We are still refining that in our agency, but I think that is something that is helping us, to get more in-depth knowledge about the persona group, as well as connect with it and redefine the solutions that we would create for them.
Got it. Thank you so much for that. Is there a project maybe that you can share that you've used it on before, that kind of exercise and that framework?
Sure. I think I can share. Let me just see.
Mm-hmm. I'll share my approach to that framework. I look at that framework more as like a step 3 or a step 2 in a persona development. I think the first thing you do is you want to just get the foundations of a persona, and that's the 4 quadrants, right? Their general demographic, general understanding about their lifestyle and their story, what their primary needs and challenges are and their pain points, and then what kind of features, solution, benefits that we can provide. That at that point, generally there's a set of assumptions, and you really want to populate, at least from my perspective, not you, I would like to populate that persona with data. So after having enough sales or experiences, and for me, it's happened on retail and it's happened on the software side of things, and it's happened in digital sales, but I've looked at it and you populate like, okay, we've got a number of folks from this part of the world or that part of the world. We have this kind of folks, like it's skewing more female or Hispanic or Los Angeles or whatever the point is. And I just fill those things out. And when I get to a point where I'm like, okay, we have a pretty solid understanding, then I get to look at the past, future as almost the life cycle and the customer journey for this particular user. So I'll sit here and I'll think, okay, if this person needs additional value, what kinds of additional things can we add maybe to the product suite? Or what kind of additional features can we add to the, to the digital product so that it feels or it sustains them as they move into the second phase of using this particular profile or product. So you can compare that to like Instagram, where for a while, Instagram just had a set number of features. And then when the market showed that there were all of these additional features that people wanted to use, such as Reels, what did they do? They developed those additional features. And those things would be like future users who would want to stay on the platform. What could we add? What kind of features could we bundle in that context?
It's a really good answer in that. So first of all, the most important thing is, go ahead, Keone, if you're finished.
No, and that's it. That's just the process, right? So yeah, I just want to give the process an example.
You adapted that particular thing. You were also in the personal core workshop that we created that, and that was from the hero's journey. And it might not be applicable to even to this case study of Intuit, because the internal admin at Intuit is not going to become a salesperson. Could, but the reason for that, Scola, was as you develop at the hero's journey, the spiritual concept that you are each other and that you will become a version of one of the personas, or you can relate to a version of the personas. That was the insight that was brought into that. It isn't necessarily that relative for project work, but I put it into the core 2.5 or whatever the last version was. I think it's 2.0. Mainly so that when people did it for themselves, they could see that they could become or go into the possibilities of the adjacent personas. It was just an Easter egg, but you don't need to use that. Just have, like, I just posted an example. The most important thing is, what's the persona type? Are they internal, external? Are they a marketing segment, like Amit said? Like this is the millennial influencer. Oh, you know why it didn't come through? Because thank you, Keone. I did fix that. I was only doing it to panelists. There it is. There are a lot of different ways to do personas. What I put into core was based on the Easter egg of wanting people to use it for themselves. But as we redo the core for 3.0, we'll have multiple categories of personas. All right, next question. But Keone just owned it because he just said, well, you can use it as a timeline for where the user starts and where they begin. So you could do a transformation of a user through your product with that, which is actually really good.
Oh, totally. And I think just the thing that I think is most important about the example is, for me, all of these are design frameworks. They're just like tools. It's like a hammer or a chisel or a screwdriver or a chainsaw. And really what you're dealing with is like conceptual, like cultural, technological challenges. And you're trying to find ways, like, how can I find an insight as a designer? Because when I think about design, and the simplest definition of design is just the rendering of intent. That was, what's his name? UX dude. We were talking about him. Glasses, a little bit thick in the waist.
Driving every UX dude I know.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
But anyways, the
Jared
point is,
who was it?
Yeah, it is Jared Spool.
Okay.
Yeah, I love that, because it is that, right? Anytime you're sitting here and you're being extremely conscious about the experience and crafting what that experience can or should be, and the intent behind it, is design. So core was fascinating to me, and it really was powerful because all of a sudden I had, at a minimum, these basic tools that I could leverage to understand what the brand or technology or product, challenge might be. So, yeah. Reframe, reuse.
I like it. Other
All
questions?
right, there was another hand
Any
that was
question?
up.
Daniel Cat.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, quick one. Can you talk a little bit about the framework for the project management, like the scope and deliverable? So it sounds like Intuit came to you for a high fidelity prototype to integrate into some internal communication pieces, but you went and unpacked a whole hierarchy of super rich, deep value adds. Was that part of the scope? How did you price for that? Like, how did you structure it? And then how did you set up the workshop so that you could deliver it and set an expectation for the client to say, all right, cool, I'm willing to pay for it?
Very good question. Give me the logistics or the there of what it is. Yeah. The end result wasn't internal documentation. The end result was the client was flying to India the next day to work with the development team. There wasn't there wasn't a show. He wasn't getting it approved. He was the approval. It was his.
Was there a moment of level setting in that narrative to say, we have 2 days, and you're like, well, great, this is gonna be really expensive. Like, how do you do that negotiation?
The person that came to me is one of the agency partners that we have here in LA, or is in a friend now. And one of his clients, a big advertising agency in LA, who didn't do UX, had the Intuit account for traditional B2B advertising. And they're like, shit, they asked for this thing, we can't do it. So he reached out to me. He gave me a ballpark, what they had budgeted, which was like, of course they're not going to budget a lot of money for this. He said,
sure.
But he knew me, and he said, can you do this in 1 day or a couple of days? And he offered me 10K, and I said, sure. And they paid me 10K for that day.
Okay.
And then in terms
and so it was pretty black and white in terms of there was no terms for negotiation. And then they talk about how you got to the expectation for deliverable, please. Thank you. Sorry, I don't mean to be.
It was
very curious.
It was very simple. The guy that I'm discussing this with, it's this big burly Taurus guy who is a developer. He's like, dude, it looks like shit. Like, gotta make this better, dude. I know you can do this. And they don't know what they're doing, and the agency doesn't have UX people, they're advertising people, we need this. And it's a buddy of mine, that I golf with, and the account person at the agency was a buddy of his. And he's like, you gotta help me on this. I'm like, all right. And I had already been helping my friend who I just mimicked, and he's part of the community, and he's gonna see this and or maybe smack me. He was the one who level set, did the whole thing, did the price, didn't care about the agenda. The output needed to be wireframes, period.
So, and I'm just going to unpack.
How do I negotiate this if it's a real thing? Well,
100%, right? Real. Like ideally, right? That's real world versus the ideals, right? And working backwards from the value pricing. Because this should be like a $30,000, $40,000 project, right?
Oh yeah. So I was just sharing this because we're writing some marketing scripts for Core right now with the person who's helping me on the marketing scripts, and he's like, "What the f? You're like, this is and I charge $100,000 for this."
I'm kicking the tires because I want to move from these shit shows. I'm gonna play with your language to the real, the ideals where I work backwards from value, right? Because I'm in the shit shows where it's like, yeah, I know you can do this, and it's 10 grand to do it on the arm. And I'm like, I don't want to run that level of production anymore. And I know it's relationships and what have you, but if you were to reverse engineer this to the appropriate, let's walk the path to win this kind of work for ourselves, how would you do that?
Well, what's really funny, and I'm going to breathe into this because this is a really good question and a really good discussion, but I want to have other people contribute to it. This is all I'm going to say. This is all I'm going to say. There's negotiating an internal value of a UX, UI, or let's call it just UX person inside a company, which, Apple through an outsourcing company might pay, $75 to $85 an hour for a UX person. Let's call it $140,000 a year for a senior UX person. A digital agency of different levels might do different kind of things. For an example, a friend who runs a digital agency, who I've been an advisor and a friend for a long time, you know, I guided them to doing agile pricing. If it's a startup, you can't justify value-based pricing, period, because then you'll get into trouble because they're beholden to investors and what round of funding they're in. So I did work for a startup where we architected, designed their identity, did all the things. And we were doing agile-based pricing, which was, you know, you buy 6-7 people, including development, for a month, it's this much, you know, nearly $100,000 a month. At agency rates, you know, we're marking it up 100%, the resources. And I actually was shy about telling the client, like, at this phase of investment, you shouldn't be like doing this burn rate, because I'm familiar enough with startups. A corporation like Intuit, $100 billion corporation, this is an internal product. They might not care that much. It's not QuickBooks, et cetera, but it's responsible for so much of a lot of money goes through it for their sales force. I mean, if they're selling $100 billion a year, that means that commissions to that $100 billion for people who are doing sales B2B are going through that product. And if you make it better, more efficient, and a better experience for those people, it might give you a bump somehow. Now, the agency that had the relationship with Intuit didn't have the capacity or the capability to do this. If you talk to any digital agency principal, selling stuff like this is a showmanship and gamemanship thing. It's relationships and what your rates already are established and what your reputation is in the industry, right? Pricing might be a really good conversation to have, you know, because I know Chris Doe's, you know, value-based pricing, but he is Chris Doe. He has Emmys behind him. He has 20 years of experience. He went to Art Center. He is actually an amazing designer. I went to school with him. I saw his work in school, saw his work after school. Like, he can kick my ass down the street and leave me bloody. That's why he does value-based pricing. If you go to the digital side, not happening. But you can charge $200,000 for this work. The question is, how are you positioned? How are you positioned? What projects have you done? Where's your logo wall? And can you convince somebody to pay you $100,000 to do it? Yeah, and
that's where the narrative. And if you don't mind, I just want to interject one little thing. That's where the narrative goes from demonstrating the qualitative versus the quantitative, and how do you measure that? Like, I mean, there's I don't know. I don't even know where to begin with all that stuff.
But again, the challenge for me is, because I understand Blair's like point of view, and it's true. It's pitching for creativity. Shaquille, I mean, you've been in software for a long time. I don't know. I'll shut up. I'll let Keone, I'll let you guys, because I don't think that Blair's point of view really is 100% workable into Silicon Valley.
I would say it's not universally applicable.
And that's fair, and I totally agree. And I think it's it's circumstantial to every situation is going to be different. And so, like, I think it's just figuring out how to mitigate that. And then, like I said, I think it's more about managing the expectation for outcomes, and then the agreement, right? Like, and that's what I'm talking about in terms of the value, right? It's not necessarily like the intellectual capital, but that's a big part of it, because you demonstrated to some degree that you unearthed a whole bunch of things that the client wasn't expecting to be engaged with.
You know, this is sort of like the godfather or the super influencer in an organization. You know, like, I'm thinking about one of the largest engagements that I had. And that was, I became basically the agency on record for a sound design company in Hollywood that probably does, I don't know, maybe 60 million in revenue a year now. And when we had started maybe 8 years ago, I think they'd started with like 1.5 million with one division. They have several divisions now. The way that I had got that job was through like a dude that knew a dude that had had a shitty design experience and they wanted someone that could approach it strategically and really tightly manage the execution of a brand. And they were in Hollywood, and they're dealing with, you know, huge billion-dollar franchises. So my opportunity came because the assistant director of their one division, which was at the time, what was it? Well, they call it interactive design and interactive sound design. Basically, they did video game sound design. So they did the sound for Metal Gear Solid and Star Wars and all of that stuff. So they had like a lot of prestige. They were working behind all of these already billion-dollar franchises, and they needed someone to brand them because they had just split off. They were like 6 months old. They were a startup, and they wanted to go to this Japanese conference. Long story short, they hired 2 designers. They had both failed, and they wanted someone that was going to be professional enough to handle the projects and deliver like some sort of like really high fidelity. They brought me involved. I pitched them strategy. They didn't want strategy. They just wanted the website. So I added it to them as a bonus, just as a showcase. And then I did the project, and they went to Japan and they didn't get any work, right? But they came back and they were like, you know what? Folks came up to us and said, you know what? I'm sorry we can't work together, but your website is super cool. Who did your website? And that opened the door. The CEO reached out to me. He's like, hey, I heard you did a really good job with this. We're actually a larger brand. How do we do this? And that's when I pitched them strategy. And then I pitched them design and development separately. And that allowed for me to scale what I would have charged just to do the design component or the strategy component in the past, or even the development component. I had basically like 3 times my price. And then that set a standard. And then eventually it opened up. Using Core, we ended up doing architectural design, interior design, working to find artists and the artwork that we were hanging and renting in the place. Like it opened up to, we were doing magazine ads for Emmys that they had won, right? Like it went to everything. Literally, we designed the signage for several of their locations, like the physical signage, work with the sign designer. How does this look and feel? What kind of materials do we use? Mauro had a field day. He was like a little kid in a candy store. He's like, oh, I get to design all the things. But yeah, to that point, it was someone had to get in. It was someone that gets you in the door. Even if you read the book, Win Without Pitching, he talks about circumventing your typical route. If you're going to get a project through the typical route of going through, you know, submitting a proposal, competing against all these other folks, just that process alone, it's automatically going to put you in a separate category. I always felt best to, however I get the job, it's through someone that I know at the top or someone that I know into the side. I have the conversation, I build a relationship, I showcase my value. I have, you know, case studies of the value that they can see or that people can directly reference for me. And those are the best opportunities. Those are the ones that I've gotten paid the most, to be honest. And that's just my experience. And I'm going to be quiet now.
Yeah, thank you, Keone. So with Daniel, one thing that would be interesting is to brainstorm, you know, for you, Daniel, because you're trying to figure it out. So tell me a little bit what the jump that you want to make. And real quickly, like we'll talk about like maybe what are the steps that you think you need to make. It's a very interesting conversation.
Well, I think for me it's sort of that, you know, getting beyond the imposter syndrome, right? And that's why I structure it on the value, because it's understanding the value that I deliver, and it's based on the deliverable and the expectation for the client, right? Like if you meet the objective, arguably you're basing that's the value you're creating, and therefore the value-based pricing structure seems to fit. And it's not necessarily like this abstract, like, oh, you know, we're going to sell this, you know, this ephemeral ideas and crazy, you know, hippie jargon in our spiritual whatever, right? Like there's no mojo. It's like, let's get comfortable with the idea that you're investing on my ability to deliver. I had the conversation with one of the clients I'm consulting with this morning, and we looked at the landscape, and I said, we couldn't pick one inflection point of anything that I've contributed that was the deal breaker, but everything, you know, and comprehensively makes growth, and it's all iterative. And that's what I'm trying to get beyond, is like, coaching the expectation of this binary trigger. Like, if you do this, you get this result. And it's like, no, it's an ecosystem. And we're going to tend the garden and till the field and plant the seeds and grow across, the spectrum of your business to build comprehensive growth over time. And that's what I want to get you to invest in. And that's what I want to coach. And that's the expectation I want to create.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Daniel,
Transformation.
And very transformational. And that does require, what I'm hearing and how it's landing on me is, it does require you to have a view of those vectors, meaning like, what are the, components of the model that you need to sew and take care of so that it all kind of works together versus just like the output, the design. And then secondly, getting over the imposter syndrome and saying like, look, this is the impact that it can have. So there's a quantitative part, which is modeling it and being able to prove that from an investment standpoint. And then there's the confidence and qualitative part, which is like, who are you being when you're coming into this? And it's a really, really amazing point of view.
And if I could just bare my soul for a moment, like, it's conversations like this that give me the validation that say, like, there's a community of people out there who are doing it. And so thank you guys for taking, an audience for what I had to spew this morning.
Yeah, and it's impacting me because I'm in the process, and I'm in the process of building the model for the system in a way that is translating the value of what I know we have as a community and individually, which we've been preaching for a long time.
I'm going to swing for something. Can I help?
Yeah, we're doing interviews. So we have interviewed about 16 people in the community. You would be a great person to interview around the model. We just are presenting what we're doing and getting people's input. And so far, the input has been interesting. Shaquille, thank you for doing it. It's a turn that I wasn't expecting, to be honest. And Shaquille's like, yeah, this is what I thought would happen. And I don't want to talk about it, but it's in conjunction with we're actually in conversations with a large company on a partnership, and we're modeling it out and seeing how we can do it and showing it to people in the community to get their input before we move forward with the model. But anyway, give me you can put it in private in the chat. Give me your email and I'll shoot you a Calendarly and we'll schedule a 30-minute interview. And it would be great to connect. For me as an entrepreneur, and this is the last thing I'll say, is 12:07. Let's get one last question in and then get to the upload. For me as an entrepreneur, and that painting which Jaja noted, I have ADD. So, and I've had it since my beginning of my career, and I've done different things in different phases of my career. During this part of the career, the last 10-year narrative, I actually have tested, all the things that you could do, like, just flow and living from royalties, doing all these different things, yoga, meditation, all these things. But then now the integration point, like, how do you bring together, all of the things, your gifts, etc. The one thing, and you're hitting it on the nail there, is unlocking the quantum leap, as Shaquille just said, of accepting who you are. And this me thinking that way, Keone is very similar, is what allows me to do this. Think about it. Who in their right mind, unless they're either insane or can put all those vectors up and distill it into a product live? You're synthesizing super fast.
If I may, the richest
neurodiversity is a superpower.
Word.
Right.
I was just gonna say the richest thing that I've discovered is that you only have the monopoly on your point of view.
And to be honest, the client knew, and people walk out of the room saying, "We would have, if I could, I would have paid you $100,000 to do this."
And that's the way that would be ideal to leave it, right? In that way, you set the table for success for the next round.
But that was a really good quote, Keone. One last question. Daniel, you're a master. Thank you.
Oh, cheers. Thank you. No, thank you. I'll defer to the next speaker, please.
Or we can go to the upload. Some housekeeping. If you haven't taken the survey, Daniel, if you haven't taken the survey, it would be really awesome. The survey has been shaping a lot. And if you give us the name, your name, that would be really great. You don't have to though. The link to it, I'm gonna put in here, the Discord, which we're working to reset a bit. Keone, any final thoughts? Or should we just hold silent for people to ask questions?
No, I think we covered a lot. And I think, some of the top lines that I got from today's conversation are understanding how design frameworks can really shift based on the context and the experience of the facilitator. So, Jose, with your unique background and your experiences and the way that you think, you're leveraging all of that cumulatively into this very unique talent that only you have. And I think that's powerful. I think that really goes to show that we can all really develop a unique expertise. And then the other thing is to really embrace who we are and to embrace the way that we think. And if we are of that neurodiverse class, of which I am a card-carrying member, it is it's a superpower. It is something to leverage, and it's something to lean into. Your perspective, is important, and if it comes from a place of benevolence, I think it can be nothing but an asset to some community somewhere. It's just about finding the community. So yeah, that's my top line.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Well, let's do the upload. Everybody who's on here, we'll end. It's nice when these are less than an hour and a half. We started at 11:15, 17, so we'll end around the same time. It'll end up being an hour. I love that. Uploads from our panel of amazing attendees. Keone just did his and modeled it. Daniel, you want to do your upload? What did one thing you got out of today that was valuable for you?
I don't know, just the confidence that, my point of view is valid, and also there's a community of people out there that are sort of carrying that and beating that same drum, and that's super valuable. And that some of the people that I champion are seeing the world the same way that I do, which is really amazing. So thank you for that perspective as well.
Choose somebody, or if you can't see anybody, I'll choose someone. Amit.
Go.
You choose versus me.
No, it's fine. Shaquille, let's hear it.
Yeah, I think this whole conversation around pricing and looking at it through the lens of the distinction between, let's call it creative and digital as the different lanes is very interesting. I hadn't really considered even applying this whole win without pitching model to technical solutions. So that was pretty interesting. Keone, you're up.
Yeah, okay. Takeaway. The takeaway isn't about the conversation. The takeaway is about the community and the breadth of experience here. Dan, it was really awesome just to hear some of your experiences and some of your challenges. And, there's a lot of camaraderie there, like I totally feel you. And I think that's, the reminder for me today is less of the content and more of the community. Connection is the currency. And I choose my girl Mila, who's about to rock it when she gets in this boat race soon.
Yeah, we got practice tomorrow, so I gotta get rested up. I really enjoyed the conversation, seeing how UX and UI things have evolved a lot since I got out of school for it. My greatest takeaway was unlocking the quantum leap. So collecting all this information and just like knowing how to filter it and then use it successfully. So that's really fun. I'm basically in the pit in the analyst market. So I hear a lot of conversations about big deals going on, and this is just like two realms of that same world, but it's basically like managing these huge ass deals and then making them work and being choosing the right people to take all of the stuff and make it clean. So that was really fun. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, let's go with John next.
Hello, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Great. Yeah, thanks for today. That was really interesting. Actually, just seeing how UX can be applied to core. And yeah, I'm grateful. I'm grateful to be here as well. Thank you.
Awesome. Sean.
Yeah. So the biggest thing I've got out of today was the confidence and peace of mind with sharing the intellectual property of core. You know, putting it in the strategy. Actually, you just gave me a lot of peace of mind because I was really scared because it just means so much to me in my business that it's there for us to help us. That I was too scared to put it in there. I was just too scared for it to get out there. But the peace of mind and that and the confidence to do that is very valuable to me. And then also the connection with the community and also the hearing the different thinking from creatives is something I really haven't experienced before in a community like this, and that's really special to me, and I look forward to seeing a lot more of it if I may be so privileged. Thank you. I don't know who else we've got left. Alejandro.
Hey, Sean. Thank you. Yeah, so today, one of the things that it was very interesting to hear is about pricing and how like sometimes we can just, you know, assume that things can be like super simple in terms of just asking like how much revenue you generate in a year and then charging 10% of that, for instance. It's not that simple. I think it's all about the value that you can provide. Focus on, yeah, can I provide 10% of that amount in value? But I think at the end of the day, it's just a matter of mindset, just making sure you have the right mindset. So that's one of the things that I love about this community is that one of the ways that I keep the right mindset is by surrounding myself with, you know, creative people that also have a really good mindset around this. Because, for instance, this new partner that I have from Mexico City, from Monterrey, Mexico, I noticed that he doesn't have that mindset. And when I ask him, like, the minimum that we should charge for a website is $5K, he's like, what? I've never seen that amount of money in my life. And so it's just like making sure that you have the right mindset so that you can charge correctly.
Yo, Alejandro, you know, I sent you a message because I thought for a moment that you were based in Monterrey. Motto is based in Monterrey. And we had that same exact scenario. I remember the first project that we had worked on all together, like him, myself, and Motto. And I was like, all right, we're going to charge 17K for this. And they were like, wait, no, we should charge 1,700. It's like, you can't eat on 1,700, dude. We're charging 17K. And I know him. All right. So we're going to, you know, and it was the first project that we had gotten. And that shift, like once it had happened, was a complete mind shift for them. And they're like, okay, now I start to get it. But sometimes that first jump, you know, it's like in the Matrix, nobody makes the first jump. You kind of have to be carried across it.
Yeah, and you know what helped me to really like make that cross to the other end is just to dare to charge that amount of money. And once they say, all right, when we can start, then all of a sudden that barrier, it just disappeared. It's like, oh, so that was possible this time.
The subtle art of not giving a fuck, as they say.
Here's a Discord link per your request. You know, my upload is this, and collectively, but from Daniel's point of view, and I'm looking forward to our interview next week, Quantum Leap, you know, at first, like, you know, bringing up Blair Ann's and like my whole concept, the story I have, around Chris, and the way he prices, it's like, like, and I can feel the resistance and like, well, it's different in digital. And like, I get all like huffy and puffy and technical. I could feel it. It got me riled up. And then I'm like, the way that I have learned is that whenever you resist, something gives you resistance and gets you riled up like that, it's actually the path you need to take, which I hate, because every time I'm like, oh, fuck you. And I'm like, oh, I gotta go that way. Anything that I judge in someone else or that I say out loud is actually what I'm judging in myself. So I'm very conscious of that when I tell somebody, if I tell you something like, look, I'm super ADD and I have these problems, I'm actually telling you the same thing. Whatever I'm sharing with you, I'm trying to tell you or share with you that, hey, somos hermanos, we're each other. Somebody said that I should write a book called I Am Jose, So Are You. And I'm like, God, that would be funny as F. But here's the point about the quantum leap. Especially in Latin America, it's a mindset thing. This morning I'm walking up, someone I see almost every day. And in Spanish, I said, buenos días, ¿cómo está? And the guy's like, en la lucha, sobreviviendo. And I'm like, but if, we're walking the dog and I'm talking to a young millennial white woman, she's like, I'm doing great. And I'm like, and it's just a mindset. Latin America and we're Catholic colonized people, sobreviviendo is actually the proper thing to say. You don't want to say thriving. You don't want to say doing great, because that's what, whoever's in control would say. So the quantum leap is simple. It's knowing your value and your worth is what I'm learning from this conversation. And that's the process that I'm going through. And that it's okay to provide a lot of value and give. But there's a limit. And then B, we all have both the capacity and deserve the ability to live in a space of abundance because of the gift that we are giving the world as powerful, creative people. So thank you, Daniel. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. The quantum leap is, I'm going to write this down, because not only do I need to go through it in order to like even pretend to, I would only be pretending to help people make the quantum leap if I haven't made it. That's my upload. Thank you.
Jose, if I may interject one more woo moment. I love the idea that namaste means the light within you, I also see within myself. So
namaste. I love that. And thank you for adding that to today. Make sure you guys share. I always forget to share on the social medias and I've been very quiet, but I'm gonna like take a photo of our screen and say how great today was on my Instagram and let everybody know that I'm amazing. Like and subscribe. Music and no cookies. Let's put the music up, and any conversation, anything you want to say, I'm gonna get up. And
yeah, something came to mind when you La Luce, from the guy downstairs, because I had a conversation with him too, and he was hilarious. He was like, "I'm working, man." He's like, "No trabajando, no dinero, no señorita." I was like, "Ooh." I was like, "For that," and I walked away. And Jose, you talking about it, you can't say like, if you act a white woman, like, "Hey, how am I doing? I'm great." That was something that I can actually refer into like my Caribbean experience. I think that I have a blessing in that I generally always have a healthy disposition. I'm always happy, right? It's hard. I have to fight. Like I really have to fight to not have this smile generally with me. And she would always say, Keone, don't tell anybody that you're doing well. She's like, if someone asks how you doing, I'm surviving. I'm okay. And that used to there was something about that just conflicted with my spirit. Because my spirit just want to be like, yeah, Ren and Stimpy style, like running all over the house. Just like, okay, joy, energy, all of this stuff. Like, all right, feel it, thrive it. But I don't know what that's all about, you know? And I get that like experience of it being like, you know, oppressor versus, you know, like you're subjugated, so to speak. But I don't know, man, you know? I feel like celebration is like the best form of like any kind of expression or sustenance or existence. I don't know. Anyways, it's just some stuff that came to mind.
In my meditation practice this week, I'll go. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. That's a great share, but go ahead, Daniel.
I was going to say in my meditation practice this week, the reflection has been on letting go of the positive as much as the negative because they're both fleeting.
Oh, that's a good one.
This is true. This is why Simon Sinek says he hates the people to say, do what you love. Because love is a feeling and it is fleeting and it is a reflection. It has almost like it can't be sustained, right? Mm-hmm. Like he believes, go ahead.
Do the moment.
So let's come up with a new greeting when people ask you how you doing. Let's come up with one that we can all like brainstorm, everyone.
I like to say I'm riding the wave, you know, until it falls off. Just go with it.
I always say I'm hanging, bro.
I'm in the
I'm
flow.
hanging.
Aloha.
10 toes over the precipice. I'm hanging. I'm here though. I haven't jumped or I haven't flown yet. Who knows? It's an experiment though. We're gonna find out, but I'm hanging.
My grandpa used to say adios orando y al mazo dando. ¿Cómo está? Adios orando y al mazo dando. Which is more action oriented. But Alejandro, which one would you do? And Shaquille, one last one. And then I got to get the heck out of here.
I like the one that we say here in Costa Rica, pura vida.
Pura vida. That's a good.
Pura vida.
Pure life. Wow.
So I have two different answers depending on how the question is asked. Because there's the people that are just like, oh, how you doing? Just like automatic, like it's just a rote conversation. And I can tell when that's coming. I'm like, oh, I'm good. Because like I know there's no more conversation there. But then if there's like someone I know, like a good friend, family member, whatever, there's a conversation coming, then I'll share. I won't even like answer the question. I'll just share something that's going on. Like I'll just talk about a recent event.
It's a really good one.
Yeah.
That's a really good one. And it opens up conversation. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, that's interesting. What I do when someone, usually if my response is if somebody asks me like how I'm doing, it's always like a quick thing. If someone like opens up like how I'm doing, I generally reflect it on like what I'm doing currently, right? Like they'll be like, how are you doing? Oh, well, right now, I really want to go work on my motorcycle, but I know I have a bunch of work to do and I'm being a little bit lazy, but you know, like that's always my mindset. But yeah.
It's interesting how we assign ourselves the tasks as our like how we are, our attributes. Like, oh, I'm this list of things I'm doing.
Totally, right? But hey, you know, it helps. Our reality is linear, and so you know, steps of things, processes. You know, it's why we're more psychologically adept to processing, you know, information in list format, because we naturally see things in a chronological order, because that's our existence. Unless you live in the multiverse.
The construct that we understand things, right? And I'm reading Kevin Kelly's "What Technology Wants," and it's blowing my mind. It's like that we are just energy experiencing itself in the moment, in like this blip of extropy.
Oh,
and
dude.
Entropy.
So that's very interesting. We should have a conversation, because I'm reading. This is the Cyborg Handbook, and it's a bunch of short stories from different philosophers around cyborg experiences, identity. And cyborg is about this concept where your identity is no longer purely atoms or photons. It is a combination thereof, right? Your consciousness and the way that you interact with reality and your biology is forever impacted by this identity, cultural expression of, self and operation. And it's interesting because it says
the new matter, right? I love that.
Exactly, man. So now, like when someone's like, well, what's the weight of a dream? I don't know. What's the weight of a viral Instagram photo?
Well, in the construct of the solid versus the ephemeral, and then where's that overlap and integration? Like when you close your eyes, where do you go? You still exist.
Exactly.
Now we're getting deep, dog.
All right, I'm gonna put a kibosh on this conversation. I love it, and it's no judgment. I love it, and I just want to appreciate. Thank you, Keone. You're a master. Thank you, Shaquille, for being here. Mila, Amit. I look forward to the interview, and Daniel, Alejandro. Did we already interview you for this?
I was gonna say, Keone, can you drop that in the chat, the title of that book, please?
It's called the Cyborg Handbook.
Okay, cool.
Jose, I don't know what interview you're talking about, but I'm happy to help with whatever you have.
And
got it. We're interviewing members of the community. It's like primary user interviews for product development.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm gonna email you immediately after this call. Thank you, Jose. I appreciate it.
Thank you, brother Daniel. Great to have you here. Before Friday, this morning I was walking the dog and I'm like, it's gonna be great. It's gonna be like it is every time we do it. Like it's gonna happen. It's gonna flow, and the right things will happen. So, have a great Saturday, everybody. Keone, take us away with your closing ceremony.
Oh yeah, man, it's been a while. I need to practice this more often. Well,
do a different one, but just with the same gist.
Yeah, thank you guys all for being here. We're gonna get out of here. Much love to you all. And just a reminder that you are more powerful than you know. You're more powerful than you know. Your only limitation is your imagination. And through community, we can do everything.
Have a good one.
All right, y'all.
Let's fucking
Peace.
go.
Bye, guys.
Goated, baby.
Peace.